Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Whether if you're on Facebook or YouTube, we are here live with our Autumn Cohort series featuring Skillpoint Alliance, and we're going to be discussing the Advanced Manufacturing Program, also known as their Certified Production Technician Program, today. Feel free to drop your questions and your comments in our message box. We will do our best to answer your questions and share your comments with our guests. So, my name is Issa White. I am the program director of the Austin Urban Technology Movement. My job is essentially to make sure I am sharing all of the experiences, education opportunities, job placement opportunities, networking, events, all of that with those who are interested in receiving, the workforce development on our end. If you are joining us because you are seeking training, you're training in any of these areas, you are in the right spot. And in terms of our series, you can definitely join the rest of them and learn about our other cohorts that we have to offer. But as far as training, my job is to make sure I'm facilitating that conversation and making sure we're matching you up with the right track to get you into the technology industry. Essentially, a little bit about Autumn. The purpose for us is to provide exposure, workforce development, as I mentioned, building ability to build social capital, and advocate for those who are seeking to be a part of the technology community. And I'll start there. Essentially, we have a petition, and if you are able to submit any of your comments, we're actually going to be joining a legislative, session tomorrow with our president, Michael Ward. And so with the Technology for All Act, or petition, we are pushing to make sure it is a standard that technology is provided in the education realm, a standard for those who are seeking job placement or seeking to join the tech community, and a standard in general for those to bridge that gap between all things technology. In terms of building social capital, Rethink Austin is actually happening this Saturday, March 20th from 1 to 3 p.m. Join us to discuss the bridge between the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, the technology industry, and the impact on our community here in Austin specifically, as well as the rest of the United States. But we want to have the conversation and provide action items that we can work on a quarterly basis to make sure we're bridging those gaps. We have a series of community corporate events that you're able to participate in, whether we're doing a seasonal or a corporate, more strategic conversation with our corporate partners, but those are always happening on a monthly basis. Moving up to workforce development, that is our main topic today. We provide opportunities for internships, apprenticeships, and boot camps. Boot camps is what we're focusing on today. So if you hear the word cohort or training, boot camp, that is generally all referencing all the same areas. We want to make sure we provide those who want to move into the tech industry, whether if you're tenured or new or novice, we want to provide opportunities for you to gain the skills that you need to be more successful in your respective positions. And exposure. We have different events to make sure we educate everyone about just the opportunities within the technology industry. So it could be outside of the actual educational and curriculum side. We're talking about, putting a name to a face with some of those careers that you might not be familiar with, as well as sharing opportunities to, dive into their daily life and see how the person was able to get into that position, or maybe share some tips that they might, encounter along their career path that would, enable you to do better on your own path. So, as I mentioned, the Texas Technology for All petition, please make sure you go to change.org and search for the Technology for All petition. You can sign the petition. Go ahead and spread the word, share it on your social media platform, share it word of mouth, as well as, if you have any colleagues that you might have a network with, you can share it with them as well. And we are receiving monetary donations as well. So as I mentioned, the purpose of the petition is to provide internet access, distribute computers, and digital skills, and teach digital skills like we're talking about today, to make sure we bridge that gap, increase the amount of Black and Hispanic people and the population of the tech space, so that it does match and reflect what's going on in America. So, as an automite, that is a person who is actively engaged and consistently involved in the following areas. As I mentioned today, we're going to be focusing on those hard skills, and so that's the curriculum. That's the general, the need to know how to do the job, right? So the soft skills, that's working on your communication, your decision making, your resumes, all things dealing with getting into the door and communicating your skill set that you have gained when you were focusing on the curriculum. Out of horizons, it's an area where you're able to put a name with a face, as I mentioned, to some of those areas or careers that you're not familiar with and have conversations with those and start a network or maybe form a bond or a mentorship bond and have a point of reference. Volunteering, just now because COVID, essentially has more, is not less restricted, but we have more opportunities to now interact with each other on a safe space, particularly in the outdoor areas. We will start our volunteering program up again, but stay tuned for those for those particular details. And finally, the networking and events. So when we have our events, such as a series like this, the Cohort series, or maybe our 12 Days of Autumn, or Rethink Austin, those are the areas where we're able to put you in contact with those employers, those potential hiring managers, anybody you want to add to your network and grow your network that way so that you can, start having those conversations, those questions answered that you might, be worried about the tech industry, or maybe help you learn more about the position that you're trying to achieve. So without further ado, speaking of the cohorts and getting you in front of those people, I want to introduce you to Weston. Weston Scythoff, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and tell us about Skillpoint Alliance.
Hi, Isa. Thanks for having me. You got my name right. It's Weston Scythoff. Very good. It's not common to get it right on the first try, so thank you for that. I'm the partnerships manager at Skillpoint Alliance, and so what that means is I'm focusing on building strong partnerships both with industry and also with other community organizations like AUTM that we can kind of work together. And our goal really is to see more people that are currently in poverty able to access in-demand jobs that have stable career tracks. So Skillpoint Alliance is a nonprofit, and we're a nonprofit training provider. We have been in operation in Austin since the mid-90s. So we've been doing this for a long time. And what we focus on, as I mentioned, are in-demand job skills training programs. And those training programs include an advanced manufacturing program that is specifically focused on certified production technician roles. And so that is a position that would have you working in a assembly or maintenance or inspection role within a manufacturer. A lot of the employers that are hiring from our program are large manufacturers that you probably have a product of theirs in your phone right now. Samsung, NXP, Applied Materials. These are Austin-based or Austin-located manufacturers that have a really large need. They're looking for qualified, motivated, committed individuals, and getting the CPT certification, the Certified Production Tech certification, which we offer for free, is a really great way to get your foot in the door in one of these industries, in one of these companies. And there's no shortage of opportunity, and there's really no limit to how far you can grow at these companies. One of the mentors that we have come in and talk with each and every one of our cohorts in this class started out as a CPT technician at Samsung, and he's now a training director. So he's moved up, and he was he was a veteran, retired from the Army, got his CPT certification, started at the bottom basically, and moved all the way up now into a managing role. And so there are like I mentioned, really no limit to the types of opportunities you can get into with a CPT certification. As I mentioned, we've been doing this since the 90s. We started off really focusing on skilled trades, so electricians, plumbers, HVAC technicians, and we still do that. But more recently, we've launched this program, and it's our first ever in the manufacturing industry. It's 6 weeks long, and that is full time. It's 6 week long full time training, and what that means is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We shorten the day just a little bit because of the virtual nature of classes right now. It's really hard to ask somebody to sit in front of their computer for multiple hours a day. If we were in person, it would probably be something like a 7:30 to 3:30, 7:30 to 4 type of schedule. But we shortened a little bit, but it is full time, and it is important. The reason that we have our classes built that way is because we're mirroring what is expected on the job site. So showing up every single day, day in, day out, on time, and then putting in a full day's work, accepting criticism along the way, learning skills, being held accountable for attendance, punctuality, performance. And then in this class, there are a series of assessments in order to get your CPT certification.
Before we get to the assessments, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So let's back up to those who want to join the program. So this is open to, anybody, I guess, working age, obviously, and up. Or are you looking for professionals that have some kind of background in tech or manufacturing? What are the ideal candidates or the most popular candidates you receive?
So our ideal candidate is anyone 18 and up or almost 18. We only train adults. So, I mean, if you're almost 18, we'd love to talk with you. But yeah, 18 and up, resident of Texas, and somebody who really excels in this class, you're going to have to have some math skills. Okay. I'm not talking about college level calculus and trigonometry and all kinds of stuff, but you need to kind of enjoy math, or at least understand some basic, fractions, measurements, conversions. Yes, conversions, exactly. And, we train with micrometers and things like that. So we're talking about, being able to make conversions from, micrometers all the way up to meters and inches and everything else. So basically, it's, like I said, anyone 18 and up who wants to find a career. We've got people, like I mentioned earlier, before the show, that we've had somebody who was in the HVAC industry who wanted a career change. And we've had several of those students who've had a lot of success because of the, pandemic. We've had folks who have come out of the food service and hospitality industry looking specifically to start a new career because they realized, wow, this industry that I'm in, is very vulnerable. Yeah, it's vulnerable to these types of things. And finding some type of, certification that you can then transport with you, it's a transferable skill, really appeals to them. So, to answer your question about, who's the best fit, it's really anyone who's looking to start a new career, because that is a key part of our model and our mission. Is we're not trying to find you a job, not necessarily, right? That's the end result of your training. But the real long-term goal is we're looking to get people started on a career pathway. And so if you're looking for that, whether it's changing careers mid-career, whether you're just out of high school, whether you're, just returning home from being out of town, whether you've been laid off, whether, you're, whatever your situation is, it really is, are you committed and willing to do a full-time training program? And are you seeking a new career? Because there's really no point in making that investment of your time. So it is free, but what we do ask for is the investment of your time, which is not nothing. It's a lot of time, and we understand that. Full time. Exactly. But that's the part that our students put in. That's the investment that they make, is they commit to being on time and doing the full program. And if you do that, you're looking at great starting wages, in the $16 to $20 an hour range to start, and that doesn't include the overtime bonuses and the shift bonuses for working at night, and a really, really just so much opportunity to advance and move into different areas of manufacturing.
And so, speaking of investing your time and what that looks like for your day. You mentioned that the schedule's 8 to 3 p.m., correct?
That's right.
So, is there any time spent during the training mode in person, or is do you rotate between the virtual and the in-person environment?
Yeah, we're doing a hybrid model right now.
Okay.
And what that means is that the majority of class instruction is online.
Mm-hmm.
So, a Zoom classroom, most of us are familiar with Zoom now for better or for worse. And so it's a Zoom platform training where you'll be, the instructor will be kind of leading class. You'll be reading through textbooks. You'll be working on quizzes and exams, doing conversions, doing measurements, et cetera, online. And then about 4 or 5 days throughout the 6 weeks, it'll be an in-person lab day. And what happens on those days is we have this really cool piece of equipment called the Skill Boss. And I encourage anyone to Google that because it's really awesome. It's a component that sits on a table and it helps train people on things like pneumatics, CNC, and other types of manufacturing specific skills that they can then have hands-on skills. Because a lot of times employers, they say, okay, you've got a certification. That's great. But do you have any hands-on skills? Do you know how to work a machine? Do you know how to turn a wrench? And some people don't have that, from their personal life. And so how do you add that without getting the job, right? How do you get the experience without somebody giving you a chance? And so the hands-on days kind of help provide some, hands-on experience that you can actually put on your resume and say, yeah, I know what this is. I've done the lockout tagout procedure on a machine. I know what that is. We also do in-person assessments. And so those days are set aside for assessments and for the hands-on group activities. And of course, our facility, we're abiding by all of Austin Public Health and the CDC's requirements for in-person training in terms of, we're doing a screening before you come in the building. Masks are required at all times, 6 feet apart, all that stuff.
And so what about if you could walk us through like getting the certificate from the point where somebody applies, then they, get in contact with you guys, and then, maybe they go through some kind of, requirements in between there, and they start the course and they do the certification. What are the steps and what are the details about each of those steps in terms of completing the program?
Yeah. So the process, there are a few steps, but it is, we try to keep it as simple as possible. Because we are a nonprofit, we do have to get some documents from our students. We have to prove to our funders that the people we're training are eligible. So there are some hoops to jump through. So the first step is visit our website, www.skillpointalliance.org. You can, on the front page, you can see the dates of the classes. You can kind of scroll through our different types of programs and see what we offer. And then on every page on the top left, there's a button that says apply now. The application is the same for any of our programs. And what you'll do as you fill out the application is it will ask you which program are you interested in. So you choose advanced manufacturing, you fill out the rest of the application, and you hit submit. Within a couple of days, one of our admissions coordinators, his name is Colby, is going to reach out to you either by email or by phone. And he's going to talk to you about the program. It'll be a relatively short conversation about kind of what are you interested in? How much money do you make? Where do you live? How old are you? And this is us checking the boxes, right? We're just making sure that you're eligible. And it's going to depend on, you might have to show some pay stubs. You might have to, talk about if you're receiving SNAP benefits or unemployment insurance. You're going to have to show us some of those documents so that we can calculate your income. Once we do that, and it seems like you're eligible and it seems like you're interested in what we have to offer, we'll schedule what we call an in-person interview. And then in between the time you have the phone screen and an interview, we're going to ask you to do an online assessment, basic skills assessment. And this is basically just to make sure that you have the requisite English skills and math skills to take the class. We don't want to set anyone up for failure. So if if you haven't completed high school and you have a GED, we still want to talk to you, but we do need to have you take an assessment test so we know kind of that you have the skills necessary to complete the class. It's a quick assessment. You do it online. Once you do that, again, you have that scheduled interview, in-person interview. We call it an in-person interview. We do them mostly on virtual now because of pandemic, right? So Colby will, get you on Zoom. And the reason we do Zoom at this stage is because we're getting you ready for the landscape of class. Because most of our classes now have some element of Zoom in them. And so we want to go ahead and start doing that early. So you'll have that interview. And in that interview, it'll be kind of an in-depth conversation about the class. So kind of describing, hey, it's 6 weeks long, it's full time, here are the things you're going to learn. And the conversation is going to be around suitability. So are you committed to a career? Are you committed to attending class? How are you going to provide for yourself and or your family during class, since it's a 6-week program, right? So he's going to talk through all these different elements with you to really figure out, okay, are you a good fit? Not just, are you a good fit for us, but are we a good fit for you? Is what we're offering something that you want and something that you're committed to achieving? And if it seems like everything is in line and you're both eligible, suitable, and ready to go, that's the end of the enrollment process right there. Colby says, hey, you're accepted. And then he schedules an orientation. The orientation session is a group session, again, Zoom session, typically 3 or 4 days before class starts. And it's like only an hour or two. It's not the full day. And this is where one of our staff people will talk to you about the expectations for a Skillpoint Alliance student. And that is going to be, things around attendance. So we have a pretty strict attendance policy because we're trying to prepare people for success at work, right? And so being on time and being present every single day and engaged is important. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, drug use policies. We'll talk about, language to use, all the kind of basic stuff that you would get when you were enrolling in college or going to any type of school. We're going to talk to you about what's expected of you. And we're going to ask you to sign the student handbook that you agree. After orientation, class starts. I neglected to mention this earlier, but even though all of our classes are, hybrid right now, they're all in kind of different stages of kind of opening back up to in person. If you don't have access to the internet, if you don't have a reliable device, and it's got to be a computer because the Zoom videos and stuff won't really run well on a smartphone. We will loan you a computer. We don't want anyone to be ever turned away because they don't have the access to the technology that you need for our class. So we do have laptops that we will loan you, and we do have a limited number of Wi-Fi hotspots that we can loan you so that you can access the class that way.
Is there anything that someone can do to help them prepare for the course, like the actual work that's done in the course besides, working on their math and English skills? Is there anything else they can be doing to help them prepare?
Yes, I think the number one thing for someone to prepare for a class like this is to do some research on the industry that you're joining. So our class is specifically designed for a manufacturing environment, high-tech manufacturing, but any manufacturing really. And so what we would really, with all of our students, we really encourage you to do some research on that industry. So who are the largest employers in your area? Who are some employers that you'd like to go work for? What do they make? What's the supply chain look like? What type of pay could you expect? Go to Glassdoor and kind of see what do these employers pay? What are people's experiences like working for these employers? So basically do your research and find out if this is an industry that you really want to be part of, and highlight some questions that you might have. Because one of the components I haven't mentioned yet is that we bring in mentors, industry mentors throughout the class, also recruiters. So in some cases it's mentoring, some cases it's recruiting, some cases it's both. And so formulate some questions to ask these individuals. So we'll have a representative from Samsung there, we'll have a representative from Applied Materials, a Athena Manufacturing, different staffing agencies. And so, being prepared with questions for those individuals can really go a long way in terms of making you seem like a really invested, committed candidate for those job openings. In terms of the coursework and the assessments, I would recommend visiting the website for the organization that issues the certification. That organization is called MSSC, which is the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, msscusa.org. And on that website, you can do a deep dive on what the certified production technician class is going to cover. You can read about the assessments that you're going to take. And you can read about the different types of industries within manufacturing that are applicable to the CPT. And so it's just a great way to get prepared for what you're going to be focusing on when you get into class.
So essentially, when you join the CPT program, like you mentioned earlier, it's not just getting a job in CPT. The skills you learn in CPT help then give you a base to then start either tackling on other areas of tech inside the manufacturing industry, correct?
Yeah, that's right. This is kind of like your key into the industry.
Gotcha.
It's hard to break into an industry that you have no experience in it. So getting a certification is one of those ways that allows you to then open those doors. And going through a program like ours, where you will get to have direct contact with hiring managers, is another great way to just get your foot in the door. And so you're exactly right. It gets you into the industry, and then where you go from there is up to you. You can go into training, you could go into management, you could go into, focus only on 3D printing, or focus only on CNC, or you could become someone who knows about all of it. You could be in maintenance, you could be in inspection and quality control, production, logistics, you name it. There's a lot of different ways that you can move once you get into that industry. And once you start building your experience, then your resume looks stronger, and you can start really building a career that's going to take you wherever you want to go.
And I asked that because I want to know, is there something while you're taking the course, right? Let's say a student is taking a course and they know they want to go, past, just being in the certified production technician. But what can they do outside of class that could help benefit them in the long run? Like what other, I guess, are there any particular, besides doing research on the industry, besides, staying up to date on, trends in terms of technology, but what other either experience they could, take advantage of outside of the course that might benefit them for the course?
Well, I would say join Autumn. Probably help with mentoring. Help with the mentoring and the networking and stuff. I think those are very valuable. Finding someone to mentor you that's in the industry could go so long. Open doors for you, make introductions for you, give you advice and guidance along the way. One thing that we've heard from multiple employers as we've been, building this program out, if you don't have a ton of work experience that's specific to like manufacturing or construction or something tech related, what do you do in your spare time that can be related? Do you build PCs? Do you play video games? Do you work on cars? Do you build models? Do you do 3D printing? Are you artistic? So really thinking about where your personal resume can help, strengthen your career resume. Looking for groups to volunteer with. Volunteering is always something that can really help fulfill you on a personal level, but of course also it looks great on a resume, especially if it's related in some way to the career that you're looking to get into. But taking free classes, I know that there are different organizations out there that offer free or very low cost computer classes that you can take. Do some of that on your own so that you can really show on your resume and to future employers that you're serious about your career.
I agree. I like the autumn answer, and I want to bring that up just because, you mentioned a mentorship. We have a mentorship matching program. We have our events and networking opportunities where our automites are able to then, communicate with people like you or different employers, or even just people who are working in the industry as an individual contributor, like you said, to help understand the industry better, help understand that role if they're, working their ideal role, or, get any other particular questions answered. Because I know a lot of people who join certification programs in general, they're a little unsure about how much time they should be investing. So I think, adding those extra tidbits, to kind of help you here and there while you're taking on those hard skills or getting that training in the particular field, that definitely does add to, the purpose of moving into that career. So I
Yep.
appreciate that answer. So what are some of the most expected outcomes in terms of, the hiring process, or does somebody go into continuing education? What are some of the most common results from those who graduate from the Skillpoint Alliance CPT program?
Yeah, that's a good question. The most common outcome is starting work at a local manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Job titles we've been seeing a lot are maintenance technician,
Mm-hmm.
process technician, fab associate.
What does that stand for?
Fabrication.
Okay.
That's going to be someone who works in a clean room at a semiconductor plant, basically making chips for phones. Okay. Which is, again, there is no shortage of openings for these types of positions in Austin and in the surrounding areas. One of the coolest perks, I think, of this program is the way that it feeds into the next opportunity. So someone who gets the CPT certification and goes to work at one of the larger, more well-known companies like Samsung, for instance, and I keep bringing up Samsung because they've been a huge supporter of the program and they send a mentor every single class. But they offer, and they're not alone in doing this, free training for you, and they pay you to go to that training. So it's on the clock, tech training, leadership training, management training, whatever, computer software, whatever it is. They've got a whole menu, a whole suite of additional things that you can learn, and they will pay you to go to that. Many companies will also do tuition assistance when let's say you want to add an associate's degree in electrical engineering or into electronics or, manufacturing. There's ACC or other local community colleges. They have all kinds of programs related to this industry. And a lot of the employers that we work with and that will be wanting to hire our graduates are going to offer some type of tuition assistance. So it makes a lot of sense to go from CPT to an associate's in electrical engineering to a bachelor's in engineering to then a master's in whatever. There is a pathway there, and a lot of the employers are going to support you on that pathway, because guess what? They need managers just as well as they need entry-level folks, and so they're going to invest in your growth.
That's good. And speaking of those employers, could you tell us about the relationship you have with the employers for those who finish the CPT program, and what that process is like in terms of obtaining those jobs or those positions?
Sure. Yeah. So like I mentioned, we have employers visiting class all throughout class. Typically when they come in, they're going to be encouraging you to apply for openings at their company because they are recruiting you. With that process, it can take a little while. It is a longer process than, for instance, our other programs in the skilled trades, where someone might get hired on the spot at a graduation or, set up an interview and start work the next day. It's usually not like that in this industry. You need to build a quality resume, and we'll help you with that. And Autumn, I think, can help you with that too. So you'll build a quality resume. We'll help you flesh it out. And then we're going to send that resume on your behalf to our network of employers. And we're going to do that during class. And the reason we do that during class is because we want to get the ball rolling on your hiring process before you even graduate. So we will get your resume done. Like for instance, our current class, we're halfway through. This is week 3. We just got resumes. Well, resumes are probably about 85% done. And by the end of this week, I will be sending those out to employers so that you can go ahead and start scheduling interviews. And so that process can take a while. Most of the larger employers work with a staffing agency. So the companies I've mentioned, Samsung, Applied Materials, NXP, Cypress, those larger companies, they're going to work with a staffing agency. So you're not going to go to work directly for Samsung right away. You're going to go to work for a company called Randstad. And then Randstad is going to hire you. You're going to get paid the same as somebody who would be working directly for Samsung. This is a way for the company to make sure that you are worth investing in before they bring you on as a full-time employee. It's still a full-time permanent job. It's not a temp job, but you do typically go through a staffing agency first. And so that process is where a recruiter from the staffing agency will get your resume. They'll review your resume. They'll talk to you a little bit about what type of shifts you're looking for, what area of town you'd like to stay in, that kind of thing. And then they will take your resume and they will find you interviews with hiring managers at that company to try to find a good fit. So that might not happen the first time. It might take 2 or 3 interviews with different hiring managers before you find a good fit. And then you'll start work as a temporary employee. And then every company is a little bit different, but at some point between 6 months and 2 years after you've worked there, you will then be eligible to transition to a permanent employee of that company.
That's good.
That comes with some additional benefits, obviously.
And so for those who are kind of on the brink of, joining, or they still don't know, what advice do you have for them when it comes to investing their time into a cohort or a certification program?
I think it really comes down to what is it that you want out of your life and your career, and what are you willing to do to get there? So I can only speak from my personal experience where I took the traditional route, somewhat traditional. I joined the military after high school, but then I used my GI Bill and I got a bachelor's degree, and now I'm in a communications role, right? Yeah. I look back and I think, but I've got student debt. I've got a lot of student debt. So I look back and I say, why didn't I join an industry where I could get started, make a decent wage for a young person, right? Without it, at the time I didn't have a family, but they will pay to train me. They will pay me while I'm getting trained. They will train me up and they will provide me with a career pathway. And I'm talking about whether it's electrical apprentice or advanced manufacturing technician. I would say, if what you want out of your life is a job that is going to provide you stability and fulfillment and a challenge and financial incentives, why not choose a pathway where you don't have to go into student debt first to do that? Right. Why not take advantage of a Skillpoint Alliance or an AUTM or a Goodwill or Workforce Solutions or Capital Idea, whoever it is, take advantage of those programs to get trained and get some skills for free and follow that career pathway. Because you'll find yourself in the same position I'm at when you're in your 40s, but you won't have any student debt. And instead, you'll be probably, a couple decades into a really rewarding, sustainable career that's only going to keep growing, especially when you're talking about manufacturing, because the things that these advanced manufacturers are making are what we as 21st century humans rely on every single day, whether that's microprocessors in our phone, the little chips in your self-driving car, or in your Bluetooth speakers and your headsets. Everything that we use technology wise is built by these companies that are looking to hire you. It's not going away. So I would say, you know, to someone who's kind of trying to decide what they want to do with their future and pursue a career, is I would say choose a career that's looks likely to be stable, that is growing, and that you can access with as little financial investment on your part as possible.
And so essentially with that information, you guys, what we want to do is we want to get you started as soon as possible. And that's really just a couple of steps here. We want to make sure you join the autumn community for number one. And that means going to our website, www.autmtx.org/join-autumn. Or if you go to our website and you want to just browse our website, go to the Contact Us tab and select Join Autumn as or join the job board profile as well. Either of those options on our website will then lead you to me, so to have a more in-depth conversation about your interests and what area of tech you would like to take on, or essentially just learn more about. We have information on our app, and that is something you can also download from our website if you go to the Get Trained tab. I will put the link for our app here in the chat box in the comments in a second. But essentially, I want you to join the auto community so that you can be in these spaces and, like I said, gain all the knowledge and experience, you know, as you can, as well as building your community to help you make that transition into the tech community. When you do join any of our cohorts, there is a autumn agreement, and that's just basically explaining that you will be, you know, active and consistent in terms of your participation in the areas I identified before, such as the mentorship, the hard skills, the soft skills, the events, and the volunteering. And that reason is because we're building an ecosystem here. It's not just get a certification class and go about your way, because that essentially is not the full answer to what we're trying to solve. We're trying to make sure we're building a community so that you have someone to rely back on, as you mentioned, a mentor, a sponsor, someone to kind of guide you through these waters, especially if you're new. If you're on the other end, if you already have experience in the tech community, then you're able to be in a position to give back and provide those resources as well. So we want to make sure it's a win-win for everyone. You gain those skills. You have those transferable skill sets that you either obtained previous or sharpened and when you join Autumn or one of our cohort training opportunities. And so let's say you decide, I hope you decide to join with the CPT program. You can complete the application at skillpointalliance.org and go through, go to CPT or join the CPT program by going to skillpointalliance.org and applying online. As Weston mentioned, you would get in contact with the admissions coordinator, Kobe Hall. They would get in contact with you as after you finish your application. You'll go through the different eligibility areas that he mentioned to make sure that you're the great fit for the program. There will be an interview to kind of give you an overview of what Skillpoint Alliance is able to offer in terms of their programs listed on their website. There will be a point of approval, and you'll start your class with orientation. Any other tidbits or things I might have missed you want to share with us, Weston?
Just one thing. This is all really great and really informative. The next class, the next CPT class, begins on April 26th. And so we run our programs back to back. There's no semester or quarter schedule. Mm-hmm. We basically, it's 6 weeks of class and then a week or two off for the instructor to have a break and for us to recruit and enroll. And then we start again. So April 26th is the next one. And after that, June 21st. After that, August 16th. And there's a few more. There's a few more. Yes. There's a few more later on in the year that I don't have the dates right in front of me. But those are the next 3 that are coming up. And so whether you're interested in starting next month or a little bit later in the summer, you can apply now on our website and get in touch with Colby and talk about when makes sense for you.
Definitely. And so, like I said, I included the video for the that was provided by Workforce Solutions in the comment section. I also put the Autumn Learn app, the link for the app, and like I said, listed on our presentation here, you have the link for Skillpoint Alliance. and it's skillpointalliance.org. So if you have any questions and you want to get started, you want to go ahead and just make that move over, which, we definitely want to push you and urge you to do that. Just go ahead and get it started, get it out the way. The quicker you start, the quicker you can finish, as they say. But if you have any other questions, this would be a great time to drop them in the chat. Or if you want to reach out to us individually, you can definitely do that as well. Weston is, you can find him on LinkedIn, or you can just get in contact with Colby, as mentioned on the previous slide. We definitely want to make sure you join us for the next cohort series for any opportunities in the software engineering and data science areas. And that will be featured with Galvanize. But we definitely want to make sure we thank, Skillpoint for joining us today and sharing, all the information that you need to know to make that big decision to move into the tech field, focusing, in the area of manufacturing. And so don't forget to join us this Saturday, March 20th. We will be having our Rethink Austin event. So for those who know, we used to have our Rethink Austin event during South by Southwest. It was like a full day event when everything's quote unquote normal and in person. This time we switched up a little bit because we all are on the virtual platform, and to reduce the amount of computer time you're spending, as Weston mentioned earlier, we want to go ahead and make this a quarterly event. And so that gives us a chance to have dive deep into those conversations and have actual action items that we work on in between each meeting. So join us this Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. We are going to be discussing how we're integrating, DE&I, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, our community, the technology industry, and the corporate America, essentially, and focusing on bridging those gaps in the tech field when it comes to job placement, education, and access in general. So join us on this Saturday to be part of the conversation and part of the solution. Other than that, we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having you, like I said, next week, or not, if not next week, then this Saturday. This is the end of our broadcast, and we will see you again next time. Thank you.